Thank you for joining for round 2 of episode 4, season 2. We tried this thing on Wednesday. We're trying it again, and things seem to be going a little bit smoother today. Obviously, Wednesday was the anniversary, 30-year anniversary of the movie Major League, which is my all-time, or 35th anniversary movie. Oh, 30th. I don't know. Doesn't matter. It's my all-time favorite movie. It's my all-time favorite. There's no movie that I put ahead of it. And listen, I'm a movie guy. I'm not saying it's the best movie of all time. Obviously, movies like The Godfather and stuff are better movies. But this is my favorite movie of all time. And Mark, I know you said you love this movie as well.
I do. Sorry, everybody, for my shitty Wi-Fi last week. That's the reason why we're doing it today. So just get that out of the way. But yes, Major League is one of my favorite movies, and a lot of the reason is because it's hilarious as hell, and it's about sports. So it's like two for one for me. So it's been one of my favorite movies of all time.
It's awesome. It's amazing. And I know we talked about this a little bit last week, but let's throw it out there again. Favorite character in the movie?
For me, I had to think about this after last week, after our kerboppel or whatever you want to call it. I think for me, the most memorable guy was Charlie Sheen. You know, he's this delinquent guy that they call in the beginning of the movie, and they're like, hey, we really want you to come out to camp. And he's like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to make it because he's in jail. And then like he shows up and he has his haircut and he has like these memorable lines because he's like this young, dumb kid. And they're like in this fresh restaurant. And Tom Berenger, the catcher guy, is like, oh, I think I see my wife over there. And he's like, oh, that chick? He's that guy. He's like, want me to take him out of here and kick the shit out of him? You know, he's just like so raw to the whole movie. I loved it.
Yeah, I definitely say I have two favorites for different reasons. My most quotable character, and I mentioned this, is Lou Brown. I think everything Lou says is so funny because it's so deadpan and he doesn't give a crap. And then my favorite character, and I have the jersey upstairs. I didn't wear it today. I have a Roger Dorn number 24 jersey. I love Dorn because he's such a prick, and I can relate. So.
You can relate. Yeah, that's a great movie, Wayne. I actually watched it because of the anniversary, and there's so many memorable lines for that whole movie. Like, it's just funny how me and you can quote it like on a dime.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to dive into the show. We're going to get all the way through it this time, but let's start off with our cool intro.
What's up, everyone? We are the NFL experts. I am Mark D, and I am always joined by my guy, Wayne G. What's up, man?
What's pippity poppity? I'm ready for a good show. I'm ready to take you down with one of our topics, or a bunch of our topics, actually.
This isn't a fight, Wayne. This is just a natural, fun debate, okay?
Debate to the death.
All right, so anyone out there who likes what they hear tonight or anything they find interesting, you want to send us a comment or a question, give us a follow. You can check us out on all our social media. We are NFL Experts Pod on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube. And if you have a topic or a comment for the show, email us at nflexpertspod@gmail.com. And if you missed the live stream, catch us on Spotify. And you can also find us on iTunes and Amazon Music. So check us out.
No excuse not to listen, not to watch, not to give us feedback. It's all there and ready for the taking. Our first segment, as always, is Around the NFL, a little bit of NFL news. We are in the final week of preseason, the last chance for guys to show what they can do. Last week was kind of the last week for starters to play. And I know we talked about this. It didn't seem to matter for guys like Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. Those guys are going to be starters. They're not having to earn anything. But for guys like, Gardner Minshew, who just won the job from Aiden O'Connell, or for Jaden Daniels, they were in quarterback competitions. So the opportunity to get all the first team reps is a pretty big deal.
It is a big deal. That's why I'm glad we talked about this on the last show, because like competition breeds. I just think it breeds you to play better. Like when you're competing against someone next to you, you want to do better than that person. So no matter what, you're always going to strive harder. So I think the competition is a good thing.
It can be a good thing. It depends on who the competition is with. Competition with my sister, awesome. Competition with my wife, not fun. It depends on who you're competing with and how they take the competition. Not everybody likes the competition.
Very true.
Now, speaking of these quarterback battles and starters being named, Bo Nix has been named as the starter for week 1 for the Denver Broncos. Now, I know we discussed this a couple of times. We thought maybe by week 6 or 7, he might get his chance to start. It's going to be right from the get-go, week 1. I'm curious, as a Broncos fan, are you excited? Are you hesitant?
I was always of the vein that I didn't think he was going to start. But the only reason I said that is because I think Sean Payton, I thought, was the type that wouldn't start him. But, like, I think he finally found his guy. He finally has a guy that can run his offense to the way that he wants it to. And you've clearly seen that in the preseason in the last 2 games. Bo Nix had 7 drives, scored on 6 of them. He had no picks, no sacks. Dude looks awesome. Like somebody, I heard somebody say that he's the athletic Drew Brees, and I can see that.
A little bit more athletic. Yeah, Drew Brees was kind of a pocket passer, but I love the Drew Brees comparison because like Brees, he's a very dink and dunk passer. In college, that's what he was known for, the swing pass to the running back or the bubble screen. That was kind of his MO. He didn't really sling the ball downfield a whole lot. But looking at Brees's career numbers, if you got these kind of numbers out of Bo Nix for a season or for a career, I'm curious if you were to rank him in the NFL, and he's the type of guy who's going to give you a 68% completion percentage, 280 yards a game, 2.3 touchdowns per interception, and a 98.7 passer rating. I mean, would you say that's top 5 quarterback numbers?
Yeah, maybe top 10. You know, I'm not trying to hype him up all much like everybody else is. I just want to see him play, keep consistently getting better every week that I've seen, because he kind of struggled a little bit in that first Indianapolis game. I think it was nerves and stuff, but I just think he's a type of quarterback where he learns from his mistakes. So every week we'll see a different Bo, like a better Bo. And I like that. And I don't want to crown him already. So I just want to see the next game and see how he does.
Well, a guy who's being crowned as the savior is Caleb Williams in Chicago as the Bears quarterback. He's been the starter from day 1. There was no competition with Bajent or anybody like that. It was Caleb Williams right from day 1 was going to be the starter. I know there are a lot of fans out there, even Bears fans, who didn't like the idea of Caleb Williams. People don't like the fingernail polish. They don't like they call him a diva. But he looks legit. He's so calm under pressure. You don't see him freak out. He throws darts from every angle. He throws shuffle passes. You know, he very much, people compare him to Patrick Mahomes, and that was laughable at first. But watching him and what he can do with different arm angles and on the run, not so crazy.
No, I think there's a lot of comparisons to Mahomes, but he's another guy, Wayne, that I don't want to crown him yet either. You know, I think he's going to be really good. I think, in my personal opinion, I think Bo Nix and Caleb Williams are going to be the 2 best quarterbacks in this draft class. I don't know if that's a hot take or not, but I think that they both have teams that are built around them that will help them succeed.
Okay. And it's not that hot of a not that hot of a take. I think obviously Caleb Williams is the top pick in the draft, so people expect great things out of him. I did want to ask you, so obviously you look at his team, you look at how the Bears are set up with DeAndre Swift and Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Romo Dunze, Cole Kmet. You know, they're surrounding him with a lot of really good weapons. Let's say he goes out there, he throws for 4,000 yards, becomes the first Chicago quarterback to throw for 4,000 yards, right? I mean, what could you really say bad about him?
I think for me, the only one thing that I could say bad about him is that he relies too much on the improv stuff. And, you know, like that's what you need sometimes in the NFL, but I'm to the vein that you have to be a pocket quarterback, and you should only do those kind of things when you absolutely need to. And I hope he keeps it that way.
Yeah, I think that's kind of his MO. He's great on the run. People love to see him throw on the run because he's so good on the run. But he does try to stay in the pocket as much as possible. But just like Mahomes, right? Even when he's running, it doesn't mean he's going to run. Like, he could still throw a 60-yard dart.
Right. And that's what I mean. It's like he's got so much talent. So he's another one like that I want to see. I got to see it week to week. I got to see his talent grow.
And speaking of the Bears, I've been watching the Hard Knocks preseason Chicago Bears. I know we talked about it before about how I'd watched the offseason one or loved the offseason one. Haven't watched the regular season one yet, but I did want to talk about the Bears in the preseason because I'm actually loving it. I thought I was going to be bored with it, but I'm not. And the first thing that really stood out to me watching it, and I know you've watched it as well, we've watched the 3 episodes, is how cool Caleb Williams is. Like, he doesn't seem like a diva. He takes criticism really well. He cheers up his teammates. He just seems like a super cool guy. I don't know where this reputation came from of him being a diva, because even in college, none of his teammates said that. They all said he was a great teammate. And now we're kind of seeing it with the behind the scenes cameras. I wonder if people were just making that up because they just don't like him.
I was just going to say that, Wayne. I think it was like part of the draft process. They're just, people are looking for things to pick out, like why he's not going to be a good player, a good draft pick, whatever the reason. And a lot of it's the press.
I did like, so in these episodes, one of my favorite things is the running back competition. I say it's running back, it's DeAndre Swift, but the third string running back competition, which seems like it's between Bayless Jones, who's actually a wide receiver, but they're playing him at running back, and Ian Wheeler. And it seems like Jones is winning this thing because he can also return kicks and punts. So that's a huge plus as well. But isn't that the great thing about Hard Knocks is we're watching these third stringers and we're like captivated. Like, I hope this guy wins the third string spot.
Right. Like you were talking about, we're talking about Caleb, but I think their backup Bajent, I think that guy's got some talent, you know, like if he shows well enough, some other team might want him when his contract's up, you know? So I thought that's who I found myself rooting for.
Now, I did not realize that the narrator of Hard Knocks is Liev Schreiber, the actor from X-Men Origins Wolverine. He was Sabretooth. He was in Kate and Leopold. He was in The Manchurian Candidate. He's the star of Ray Donovan. If you guys like that show, I haven't seen it yet, but I know him as an actor. And when I listen, and I tried to listen really hard, like he sounds just like the old guy who used to do it.
Yeah. I think that's what fools people is that he sounds so much like the original guy. And they're like, and I think he's one of those guys also, Wayne, that he doesn't sound like he looks, if that makes any sense. So I think it's one of those.
Like Mike Tyson?
Yeah, that's a good example.
Now that'd be a great narration of Hard Knocks, right? Now, third down, Caleb Williams is looking for his wide receiver. He's wide open down the stretch. All right, so another preseason thing I wanted to bring up, the Steelers. We talked about your guy, Russell Wilson, your favorite player.
My guy, and your guy.
Aaron Rodgers is your favorite. Then Russell's like second. But Russ is over there in Pittsburgh. Now, I know you had messaged me when you were saying these topics, and you said that Russ and Fields both looked atrocious when they got the chance to start. And I'm looking, Russ was 8 of 10, and Fields was 11 of 17, and he ran for 42 yards. I don't think either of them really put up bad stats. They seem to be pretty efficient.
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up because it really necessarily wasn't their play. Like their offensive line is absolutely atrocious. So I feel like neither of those guys are going to have a shot like to throw the ball, and which is really crazy. They're running quarterbacks, and it's still not going to help them. I'm glad that you brought this up because I was thinking about this topic, Wayne, and part of the reason why I brought it up is because I was thinking about Mike Tomlin, and I don't think he gets enough, I guess, criticism because every year he happens to will his team to the playoffs. But if you think about it, the last 6 years, he's to blame for the state where the Steelers are right now. Like he's gone through multiple offensive coordinators, multiple quarterbacks. Like my personal opinion, I think they held on to Big Ben way too long. They should have had his ass retire. They've never really addressed the O-line until this year in the draft. And who knows if that's even going to work out. So, and one of my questions about the whole thing would be is how come he's never been in the hot seat, or has he?
He hasn't because he makes the playoffs every year. He's never had a losing season, so that's why he's always going to have a job. It's like Marvin Lewis. Remember Marvin Lewis was with the Bengals forever and didn't make the playoffs. Like he couldn't make the playoffs or made it one time or something like that. But every year he had a winning season or he did well. So they just hold on to the guy. I mean, I think that Tomlin's a good coach. I mean, I don't want to knock him for going through coordinators or going through quarterbacks or holding on too long, because you can say all those things about Bill Belichick, and nobody's ever coached better than Bill Belichick in the history of the sport. So, I mean, if Tomlin's kind of like a Belichick light or a diet Belichick, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, I'm just trying to say that there should be some criticism pointed his way that there really isn't. Everybody's just like, oh, he makes the playoffs every year. Like, he's so good. Like, the one thing that has been good with them is their defense, which I always say, Wayne, is that if you're a defensive head coach, offensive head coach, you should have that side of the ball right. And he's always has. But I feel like it's always too much of a focus. And that's why all these other things aren't focused on. That's why he's gone through multiple quarterbacks and coordinators. And then now he has Russell and Fields. And neither of these guys are going to be protected well, and they can't even they're not going to have a chance. Their line is bad.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. It really depends on the running game. Najee Harris and their backup is pretty good, I guess. People take him in the fantasy draft. But like, if they can run the ball and they don't rely on these guys to throw it for 300 yards a game, I mean, Fields isn't that guy. And no quarterback's really that guy. You can't rely on a guy to put the ball up 40 times a game and expect him to have success. Especially in this league, especially as a defensive team. If you're a team that relies on defense, you got to just ground and pound. I mean, that's the way it is. I don't know any defensive teams that air it out.
Right. And I don't think their run game is ever going to get going with their line being so terrible. Like, they have to hope that these guys that they drafted, Frazier and Fontenot, turn out to be good players. Otherwise, it's going to be another shitty ass O-line. Sorry to say. And I don't know. Like, I guess I'm here doing hot takes tonight, Wayne. But another hot take is I think that they're going to compete to be one of the worst teams next year.
Wow, I don't know about this. I expect them to be like 11-6 or something like that. I mean, they were 10-7 last year with Kenny Pickett.
I think that they don't have a lot of talent offensively, and I just don't think seeing them doing that well. It's just, like I said, my own opinion.
Okay, you're allowed to have one. And so we're doing our buy or sell. We actually call it I'd buy that for $1, and we'll see if I hit the right button today. Buy that for $1. This is a nod to the greatest movie that's ever been made, called RoboCop. It is better than The Godfather and Goodfellas and all those. It's just an absolute masterpiece. Really, Daniel Day-Lewis could have played RoboCop, and it still wouldn't have been as good. So I take it to... We say buy this for $1. I'm going to throw a statement out there, and we're going to find out whether or not we would buy this for $1. So first of all, Michael Penix. Michael Penix sits week 2. Looks like he's going to sit for the rest of the playoffs. Not playoffs. Sorry, preseason. And I have
probably for the rest of the season.
Theory. Yeah, I have a conspiracy theory about this. So obviously he looked great against the Dolphins. Went out there, slung the ball all over the field, and we knew he would. He's a gunslinger. And the coaching staff came out and said, we've seen enough of him. We don't need to see any more. And you could say, well, they're protecting him. The guy's had 2 bad knee injuries. Why risk it? But he's not going to play this year. So you're not really risking anything if he does get hurt, because he's going to sit all year anyways.
Right.
So I'm going to say buy or sell, or buy for $1, yes or no. Michael Penix is sitting because they don't want the fans to be calling for him to start over Cousins.
Okay. I'm going to buy it because I think part of that is correct. I think part of the reason they're not playing him is because they don't want all this hoopla of who's going to be the starter. But I have 2 things that I think the reason why he's not playing. My first scenario is that they're actually seriously considering starting him. And if he's a starter, they're definitely not going to want him playing that last preseason game. Like you said last week, Wayne, it could be like the Seahawks all over again. Who knows? And second is what you just said, is that he's seriously brittle. And so and he does have an injury history. So maybe they really are afraid of him getting hurt and they don't want to waste it out on a preseason game.
Oh, maybe. But like I said, if you're committed to Kirk Cousins, and apparently they have $100 million saying that they are, then, you're going to play Penix as much as you can, because if he's not going to play during the regular season, these are going to be the only in-game snaps he's going to get until next preseason. So you'd think you'd want to get as many as possible. I think it's just one of those Tim Tebow situations where you remember how, like, if Tebow was the backup, everyone was like screaming for him to start.
Oh, I remember, Wayne.
I think it's that situation. I think it's like, Michael Penix looks really good, so everyone's gonna be like, hey, to hell with Kirk Cousins, start Penix.
But what about my thought about, like you said, and you're the one that kind of put this in my head about maybe they start Penix. What's your thought on that? Like, what if they pull a Seahawks and play him and shock everyone?
I'd be surprised, because I think if they were going to do that, they still would have played him in game 2. I mean, maybe not game 3 and maybe not even game 4, but you want to get at least 2 games worth of tape on this guy. You're not going to make that decision after 10 passes or 14 passes, whatever it was.
Right. Agreed.
The next topic I have here is also Atlanta Falcons related, and that is Matthew Judon, who got traded to the Falcons for a 3rd-round pick. And he said, I'm not going to pressure the team for an extension. I want to go out there and I want to earn it. So the first thing I want to say is, how about that, Hassan Reddick?
Good one, Wayno. You know what? I actually really respect that he's doing this. That he's like, hey, this is a new team. They haven't really seen me play. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to prove it. And I think he's the type of player that he will go out and do that. Healthy, he has to stay healthy. But I think he's going to do it. And I think maybe at the end of the season, after he shows that he's still capable, that they're going to pay him.
Well, you're ruining the buy that for $1. I haven't asked the question yet there, Chief.
Oh, sorry.
So anyways, I was going to say, the guy had 15.5 sacks 2 seasons ago, tore a bicep last year, and missed a large chunk of the season. He is 32 years old, and he is in the last year of his deal. And my question was, does Matthew Judon earn the extension? And obviously you're saying that you think he does earn that extension.
Yep, I'm buying it.
Now, does he earn 25 million a year type of extension?
Well, I think it depends on the production, Wayne. So we got to see what he does sack-wise, because he's mainly an edge rusher. So you're going to want him. You want at least double-digit sacks, or at least close to it, to give him that kind of deal. So I guess we'll see.
Okay. The next one I have here is Tua Tagovailoa. He makes some candid comments about former coach Brian Flores. We know Mike McDaniel's in there now. Mm-hmm. We know he had a rough go with Flores. I mean, Flores came in, started him, then benched him, then started him, and then benched him in the 4th quarter for Ryan Fitzpatrick. There was a lot of weird stuff going on there. The locker room was split before all that happened. But Tua basically comes out and says he's a terrible person. Every day he'd be like, you're not good enough. You're not accurate enough. You shouldn't even be in this league, and really just kind of tearing him down. And he said, now McDaniel comes in and he's like, hey, you're great. You're accurate. You're amazing. And it kind of pumps him up, makes him feel better. Now we've seen great production from Tua under McDaniel. My question for you is this: buy for $1 that Flores is a bad guy and not that Tua is just oversensitive.
Yeah, I am buying that, Wayne. Honestly, first off, I want to say, I'm glad that Tua finally came out and said something, because I was like you. I didn't know what all this weirdness was about. And after him coming out and say this, it all makes sense. In my personal opinion, I think Brian Flores sounds like a fucking asshole. Sorry, it's just my opinion. All the stuff that he said, one of the things that really stood out to me was, I forget the exact line. He's like, oh, this guy should be here and you shouldn't be here. He was referring to Deshaun Watson. I don't know if you remember last year, Wayne, or not last year, but during the whole trade drama of Deshaun, at some point, the Dolphins really wanted to sign Deshaun, but the only way they were going to do it is if the owner wanted him to settle all the cases. And at that point, that wasn't going to happen. So that's why the deal fell through. But they really wanted Deshaun, and I think Brian Flores really wanted Deshaun. And personally, you know how I feel about Deshaun. I don't think he's going to be that great of a quarterback. All his off-the-field ickiness, I'm not a fan of. So if Flores really wanted that guy instead of Tua, that kind of shows you the kind of coach he was. Like I said, I think he's an asshole. And what I thought was really interesting is that when he came out in his press conference and talked about it, he didn't exactly deny it. He just was like, I'm going to learn from all these things, da-da-da-da-da. But one thing about all this is it just really made me love Mike McDaniel more, because he's one of my favorite coaches. I've told you this before, Wayne. And I love that he was able to flip Tua's mindset and pump him up and be positive and turn him into the better quarterback. I love that.
Well, one of the things I like about Mike McDaniel is I think he looks like Pete Davidson. And so I think that's funny every time I watch him in a press conference. But I think that I'm buying this for 50 cents, if that makes sense. So basically, I do think that Flores was probably
half buying it.
Half buying it, yeah, because he was tough on Tua, I'm sure. But I also think that Tua's coming in as the guy. Jalen Hurts got benched for Tua. Tua has been the guy at Alabama. He won national championships. Everyone's been kissing his butt. Tank for Tua. They were all supposed to lose to try to get him. He's been the golden child. He comes in. Listen, rookies have lumps. He comes in. He's going to struggle with his accuracy initially, reading defenses, the speed of the defenders, things like that. And if Brian Flores is like, come on, you've got to be better than that. That's not good enough for the NFL.
Remember, he was pulling him a lot for Fitzpatrick, remember?
I do. Well, that's what I'm saying. So there's a lot of stuff going on there, but I'm wondering if it was hard coaching to try to get him better, And if maybe Tua, because he's never been hard coached since he was 5 years old, just didn't know how to handle that hard coaching and took it as being a bad guy. So part of me feels like Flores was tough, but I'm not buying that he was evil like Tua's picture. I think Tua might have been a little bit oversensitive.
Right, and I would agree to that to a certain point. Like, I wouldn't say that I wouldn't say Flores is a terrible person. I just think his coaching style didn't necessarily mesh with Tua. Tua's not the type of quarterback that wants a guy on him all the time like that. He wanted a guy like McDaniels, obviously, because you see his production after the fact. But my whole question is why did Flores draft Tua if he didn't want him? He was going to berate him every day and all this stuff and pull him from games and put in Fitzpatrick, which I thought was ridiculous because that totally ruins a quarterback's confidence. So you smash his confidence right away coming into the league. So, that's just my thought.
No, it's a funny question. And of course, Flores is from the Belichick, branch. He's from that tree. And what's funny is Belichick came out when talking about Nix. They were asking Belichick on the Pat McAfee show, do you think that Bo Nix is going to be the starter in Denver? And Bill said, I think that Sean will start him when he's ready. He goes, because the thing you can't do is you can't start a guy, then bench him, and then decide you want him to start again, especially as a rookie. You just can't do that. It hurts your mentality. It hurts the flow. It hurts the locker room. And I thought, wonder what Mac Jones thinks about all that.
Yeah, but before that, Belichick never did that. So, I agree with that. Like he basically, you're just saying what Belichick agrees with me, that you don't pull a guy, you keep him in there thick and thin because you need him to learn.
Well, the next buy that for $1 is about NFL technology. We all love NFL technology. Everybody's a fan of replay. Everybody's a fan of all this stuff. And one of the NFL technology things they're testing is the Hawkeye technology, which captures the runner and the person with the ball from multiple angles and tries to figure out exactly where the spot of the ball was and if they got the first down. And this is supposed to initially get rid of the chain. So no more marking the chain on the whatever the closest yard line is, running out there, stretching it out, having the other guy stretch it to the other end. You've got technology. If there is one of those things instead of the chains, the referee is going to go to the little headset box, whatever, is going to look at the screen, or New York's going to tell them yes or no, and they're going to determine the first down that way. They've been using this technology in tennis. It's something that they've said they want to use in baseball, for the strike zone. And
right.
Buy for $1, yes or no, Hawkeye technology is going to replace the chains.
Yes, I'm definitely buying that. We've talked about this on previous episodes that me and you, Wayne, we believe in new technology and we want more accuracy. And obviously the refs don't always get it 100% right. And I'm not totally sure if you've seen it actually in action, but I can't remember who was playing, but I was watching a preseason game and they were wondering where the spot was to make if it was a first down or not. And they didn't even go to the change. And all of a sudden, two seconds later, it was on the screen it's a first down. So the Hawkeye equipment, boom, already got it right away. First down. Didn't delay the game at all. You didn't have to bring out the stupid chains. This old, like I said, this old caveman shit. Let's get rid of it. And I'm glad that they're moving on to that.
No, it's definitely going to replace the chains. There's no doubt about that. Technology is always better than humans. We should have an automated strike zone. We should have Hawkeye technology in every sport. It's so incredibly quick. Like you said, when you watch tennis and they're like, oh, was that out or not? I'm challenging it. They just turn and look at the screen and it's immediately up there and you can see where the ball hit. It's instantaneous. So, I mean, why would you ever have the chains and somebody's 44-year-old dad is running out there with his bare belly to put the chains down to say, oh, it's 2 inches short.
Like I said before, Wayne, they do it because they want the dramatic effect, which Mark, my buddy Mark, has always said that he likes that. Some people just do. They like that. Hey, is it a first down? Is it not? Me, I'm rather keep the game going. It's a first down. Let's get it right away. Let's screw all these chains and shit.
All right. So this is my favorite one here. Buy for $1. Brock Purdy plays with the second string team in the preseason game. He goes 2 of 6, 11 yards, basically plays 2 series, 3 series, whatever it is. And they pull him and they put in Josh Dobbs. They win the game 16-10. That doesn't matter. It's preseason. Buy or sell. Not say buy or sell. We always say buy or sell. Buy for $1 that his performance with the second team unit proved anything.
You always word these the way, so I don't know if I'm buying it or if I'm not buying it, Wayne.
Well, you were buying this hard a few days ago.
Okay, well then I am buying it. And I just have some questions for you. I know you want to sit here and debate about this, but I'm not going to let you do that. But I have some questions for you of why this happened. Why would they play him without any of the starters?
I don't know. I didn't watch the game. So did the starters initially play? Did he play a series with the starters and then play a series with the back? Or the backups played right from the first snap?
Backups played right from the snap, and he played with them. Not very many drives, but he still went out and played with them. Like, what's the thinking behind that?
It could be something as simple as just like they're like, hey, we're going to play the backups, and they wanted to do a Michael Penix thing and just throw the backups in there and not the starters. And he was probably like, man, I want to play. I've been practicing all week. Put me in there. I don't care if it's for a series or two. I just want to throw the football. I want to get some plays in there. And so they
you
said,
think it was more him and not Shanahan?
I would say it's probably more him. Yeah.
Okay, I can see that. But you know how I feel about Brock. I just don't think he's this MVP caliber quarterback that everybody thinks he is. And I'm not going to crown him that.
Okay, and that's fine. Listen, see, the reason I set the show up this particular way is we started off talking about Drew Brees and how great you think Drew Brees is despite being a dink and dunk passer, right? You think Drew Brees is this really great quarterback. And I said, well, what do you think about a quarterback who completes 68% of his passes for 280 yards, 2 touchdowns per interception, and a 98.7 rating? Like, that guy's probably a top 10, maybe even top 5 quarterback in the league. And I said, okay, well, Brock Purdy at 69.4%, 270 yards, 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, and 113 rating. So by your logic that you said only minutes ago, Brock Purdy is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, but also Drew Brees had some good players around him, but he doesn't have guys like Purdy has. And Purdy has guys that are very good after the catch. So they catch a little dink-dunk pass, and they run for 40 yards, or they score a touchdown. Like, Purdy's not doing anything on that. And he got a lot of guys that make him look good. And I just don't think he's that great of a quarterback. I think if he was on any other team besides the 49ers, he would not have those numbers.
Well, see, I'm glad you
any other team, Wayne. Any other team. Pick any other team.
Okay, any team. Yeah, the Patriots, please. But I will say this is that you brought up the dink and dunk passing, and I'm glad you did. Brock Purdy led the NFL in yards in the air per pass last season. So every quarterback in the league, even your big arm guys like Josh Allen, dink and dunk more than Brock Purdy does. He airs it out more than any quarterback in the league.
Huh. I did not know that. Good to know.
Well, now you know. Yes, knowing is half the battle.
I do know.
I also set up the show this way because remember a few segments ago I asked you, I said, hey, if Caleb Williams, he's got all these great weapons, DeAndre Swift, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, I said, if he has a really great season, you were like, yeah, I don't want to put a crown on him, but if he has that kind of season, then he's really good with all those weapons, just like Brock Purdy's really good with all those weapons. So by your own, so what I think, since you think that having better numbers than Drew Brees is great, and you think that doing really well with really good weapons is great, I think you just don't like Brock Purdy. I don't think it has anything to do with his weapons or anything.
No, I don't like him, to be honest. Like I said, everybody thinks he's so good, and I don't think he is.
Okay, but without any,
just like we've disagreed on other quarterbacks. Like, I don't like Trevor Lawrence as much as you do, and I'm kind of with Brandon and Buck, who we're going to talk about. I'm not a big fan of Lamar either.
Oh,
so I'm with them on that.
Why don't we just fight? We can just fight. That's what we'll do.
Because I'm just telling you, I agree with those guys. I don't think either of those guys are as great. I'm glad we're going to talk about it.
I'm glad we're going to talk about Lamar. I didn't know you felt that way about Lamar. Now we're really going to fight. All right. So the other thing I just wanted to bring up before we move on to the next subject here, obviously, is in our text, because people don't have access to our text, so we should make that part of like a Patreon.
No.
So in our text, Mark did say that, there are guys out there who didn't need those weapons that had great numbers, guys like Peyton Manning. And I said, are you kidding me? The guy had like 8 Hall of Fame offensive players around him.
Not right away.
He had 2 right away.
It took him a while. It took him like 2 or 3 seasons to get those guys. They didn't get he didn't have Edgerrin James. He had Marshall Faulk.
He did.
Who they traded the next season.
He had Edgerrin James that year. He went 13-3.
Okay, so because they drafted Edgerrin James.
Yeah, and he had 1,400 yards rushing.
I'm just saying that it wasn't the same thing at all.
Okay, well, and then you also mentioned a guy named.
And I also mentioned that I think it was more like of the vein, like I was trying to tell you. No, never mind.
That's okay, because I was going to bring up John Elway, because you said John Elway, and this was kind of a homer take to me, because I'm going to throw out some numbers about John Elway. 56.9% completion percentage for his career. And he won 2 Super Bowls with a guy who ran for 2,000 yards. Before those 2,000-yard rusher guys, 0 Super Bowls.
And that's what was my point, is that we shouldn't even have been in those Super Bowls. Like, he was such a good quarterback. We had no weapons. Like, he made guys household names. We had nobody. Like, we had no name running backs, no name wide receivers, and he managed to bring us to 3 Super Bowls, dude. Granted, we got fucking blown out in every one of those, but he willed us to those Super Bowls with not much talent. And that was kind of my point, is that Brock Purdy is not like that.
Well, I did also want to bring up this fun John Elway stat, because you brought up John Elway, and I wanted to keep sticking with John Elway. So John Elway is number 12 all time in passing yards, a little over 50,000 passing yards. So he's number 12. Of the 12 guys on that list, of the top 12, he's also 12th in completion percentage, last. And of the guys in the top 20 for passing yards all time, John Elway is 19th in completion percentage. So he's not a very accurate passer. I mean, obviously evidenced by his 56.9% career completion percentage. And it just blows my mind. You're going to knock a guy who has a 72% completion percentage, because he's got weapons.
I'm just telling you that Brock Purdy is none of the caliber of Elway. And for you to, like, if that's what you're saying, I'm not going to be the only one that's going to laugh at that statement.
I'm not saying he's Elway. I'm saying Elway sucks. All right. So the next thing I want to get to.
Tread lightly, Wayne.
Hey, you're going after Lamar. I'm going after Elway.
Watch it, man.
So the next segment we have here is one of my favorites. It is the Stadium Rant article of the week. We get to acknowledge a Stadium Rant writer who's done a really great job writing an article. And today we are acknowledging my guy here, Glenn Lewis, who wrote New Revelations Show Why Panthers Bryce Young Had No Chance as a Rookie. This is a really great article by Glenn Lewis. Please check it out, stadiumrant.com, and check out Glenn's other articles. But I will say the thing I really liked about this a lot is it talks about he had 3 guys basically that came in that were former head coaches that were trying to install 3 separate offenses at the same time. So obviously we know about Tepper and his whole show, but like, how can you expect a guy to succeed when he doesn't even know what offense he's supposed to run that week? And I'm a big Bryce Young defender. I think he's a really good quarterback, but I agree with Glenn that they didn't give him a chance to succeed.
You know what? The one thing that this article was missing, Wayne, is that who was to blame for Bryce Young having this first year with 3 coaches? Who was to blame? You just mentioned his name, David fucking Tepper. Like, and I've told you, this guy's a fucking asshole. One of the worst owners in the league. He throws fucking drinks at fans at opposing stadiums, and he's the reason why they fired Frank Reich. Then they had their interim coach try to take over. Then they had another guy to try to coach him. It's like he was the one to blame. Well, how come this guy doesn't mention anything about that?
I think maybe it's just we can't blame Tepper for everything, but yes, he is kind of to blame for everything. But it's like it gets tired. My point that I liked about it is that, again, I'm a Bryce Young guy. I think Bryce Young is a very talented young quarterback. I think you give him the right system. He's accurate. He's smart. People knock him for his height. It's the same thing with the Kyler Murray thing. Everyone's going to knock him for his height. I think even we posted something of a little boy wearing a helmet, Carolina Panthers helmet. We're like, hey, look, it's Bryce Young. So, we like to make fun of him. But at the end of the day, I think Bryce Young is a superstar potential kind of player.
And you know what? And I'm going to disagree with you again about another quarterback, and I don't think he is that great. And I don't think he was going to succeed no matter, even if he didn't have 3 different coordinators. They don't have a lot of talent in Carolina. They're going to be one of the worst teams next year, and I don't think he's going to help a whole lot. He was also on an all-star team in Alabama. So, like, we really haven't seen him play. My point is, like, what's really interesting, now you see him with the talent that Carolina doesn't have, and he's showing that he can't do nothing. And I just don't think he's going to be a quarterback. Like you said, he's small. He's going to get beat up. I don't see him succeeding very far in the NFL.
I don't like to point out the all-star team in college thing because you know who else had an all-star team in college? Every other quarterback who's starting in the NFL. Guys like Joe Burrow had Jamar Chase
True.
and Jordan Jefferson or Justin Jefferson at the same time. And he had like Terrence Marshall as like the third receiver. Like he had a loaded roster as well. So when you're coming out of college, if you are an NFL draft pick, particularly a number 1 pick, you probably had a bunch of superstars around you as well.
No, you're correct about that. He's another one, Wayne. I just don't like another quarterback you always talk about is Anthony Richardson. He's another one I don't think is that talented. And I've talked to you about that also.
Well, I want to be careful when we mix up talented with skilled because Richardson has loads of talent. He's got an absolute cannon for an arm. He runs a 4.3 or 4.38, something like that. Like he's really good. But skill-wise, he's very raw. And that was the thing coming.
You're correct. He needs more skill. Correct.
Yeah. So when he came in the draft, I was surprised how high he went because he was so raw. There was talk he might be a second-round pick. Obviously, he's got all the talent in the world. Making him the starter as quick as they did, he's kind of being asked to fast-track that skill. It's a lot of pressure to put on a kid.
And also, didn't he only play like 1 year of college? Like, he didn't have that much football experience before this.
I mean, I'm sure he played in high school and stuff too, but yeah, maybe only 1 year of like Division I college football.
Yeah, so I'm just saying he doesn't have a lot of experience, so he's really raw. And like, I don't know if you saw him in the last preseason game, he threw a pick 6. Like he didn't, like you said, the skill's not there yet.
Right, but again, I want to point out that Joe Burrow only started 2 years of college football, and the first year he started, he was absolute garbage. He was not good, and then he had like one of the greatest years in college football history. So it's like, you have a good year. And granted, I will say this, Anthony Richardson did not have one of the greatest college football seasons in history. He got drafted where he did because of how well he did at the combine, his physical tools.
Right. He's a beast. He's a physical specimen, which I understand, but he's not a quarterback, not yet.
Right. But you can't teach his arm strength. You can teach accuracy.
Right.
All right. So great article there, Glenn Lewis. Check out Stadium Rant and all their great articles. But Glenn Lewis's article, definitely hit him up on Twitter and whatnot as well. One of our best buddies in the podcasting world is Michael Buckheister, who is the host of Man Hour NFL. And that is every weekday at 2:30. You will get to see Man Hour. And Buck talks about all kinds of stuff. He usually has a crazy take or two. And we're going to talk about one of them here. Mark handpicked this one, probably because he knows how I feel about it, but we'll talk about it in a minute. Here is Buck's clip and his thoughts on Lamar Jackson.
Is Lamar Jackson ever going to make a Super Bowl? Is Lamar Jackson on the Baltimore Ravens as currently constructed ever going to make a Super Bowl? That's the question of the day. I'm going to say no. I do not.
So he does not think Lamar will ever make a Super Bowl. And I'll let you go first. I have my thoughts on this, and I know Julian Edelman has some thoughts on it as well. But what are your thoughts on Lamar never, ever going to make a Super Bowl?
Okay, so I do agree with Buck about I'm not a big fan of Lamar, but I'm not going to go as far as to say that he's never going to make a Super Bowl. I think at some point he will. When? Who knows? But I think at some point he might get over the hump and beat Mahomes, because Mahomes is going to be the one that all these AFC quarterbacks are going to have to get over to get there. And maybe he does. And I think, when Buck brought this up, I had commented that Manning didn't win early in his career playoff wise. He kind of struggled, and eventually he got over Brady and he won. And I kind of compare this to that at some point Lamar will get over Mahomes and get to a Super Bowl. If he'll win it, who knows?
Well, to compare Lamar Jackson to Peyton Manning and then say you don't like Lamar, like what is it you don't like about Lamar?
I think I'm like with Edelman. I think when the big games come, he curls up into a little ball and he's not very good. And I just don't. And I think at some point he'll get over that, but not right now.
Yeah, Edelman did say that when it comes to the playoffs that he's on a milk carton. He's missing. He doesn't show up in the playoffs. And Buck did talk about this in depth. I cut it all out there because we only have so much time. We're not going to show his entire show here. But like Buck did put up some stats, and 9 touchdowns and 9 interceptions, 50-something percent completion percentage. Not as bad as John Elway's, but still bad. It was like 58%.
Tread lightly, Wayne.
And so Lamar has not really done well in the playoffs. And I understand. He's a great regular season quarterback. Buck said that as well. Great regular season quarterback. I am a believer that what you do in the regular season, you can do in the playoffs. I think they just need to figure it out. I'm a believer in Lamar. So for me, obviously, even though he hasn't shown it in the playoffs, I still think it's there because we've seen it in the regular season. It's just a matter of whether or not he can flip that switch.
I think I agree with you on the way of that they have to game plan the right way to win. Because I think this last time when they played the Chiefs in the AFC Championship, he tried to throw it a bunch. Like, that's not their MO. That's not their game. Like, run the ball, dude. Like, even if there was, like, I think Buck mentioned this, even if there was pass plays called, you can still run it. Like, and he didn't. And it's like, why not, dude? Like, you claim you want to go to a Super Bowl. That was going to help you go to a Super Bowl. You run the ball some more, but he didn't.
Well, I do want to say that, he's not Peyton Manning in the sense that he doesn't call his own plays. He does have an offensive coordinator who calls the plays for him. And I understand that in hindsight, because hindsight is the old adage, 2020, right? We can see in hindsight 2020. In hindsight, yes, running or throwing the ball as much as they did against the Chiefs might have been bad, especially since it was like cold, rainy weather or something like that against the Chiefs. But I also feel like if it had worked, they just ran the ball 40 times against the Dolphins or whatever it was, and then they go in there and they throw the ball 40 times. If they beat the Chiefs, the offensive coordinator looks like a genius. And everyone will be saying, oh, you know why he beat the Chiefs? Because they weren't expecting them to come out and throw so much. You know what I mean? So it seemed like a decent strategy. It just didn't work out. I'm not going to put that on Lamar's shoulders. Like I said, you ask any quarterback to throw the ball 30, 40 times, they're going to make mistakes. I mean, Brady will make mistakes.
And Kansas City has a good defense. You can't throw the ball that many times on a good defense like that. They will, and like he threw 2 picks in that game. That's why they lost.
Yeah, it's going to happen. I'm rooting for the guy. I have him winning the Super Bowl this year, beating Green Bay in the Super Bowl. So I'm kind of hoping this is the year that he holds up the Lombardi Trophy. So that is Mocking Man Hour. And obviously we get into our fan feedback section. And we didn't really have much fan feedback today or over the course of the week. But we did have a couple of fan feedback questions that Mark posed. And so I wanted to talk about them a little bit with Mark. The first one you had here is you said, who's going to have the worst season out of these teams? And you had the Giants, the Patriots, and the Panthers. Now, obviously, we did our schedule breakdown, early in the season. And I have the Giants going 0-17, losing every single game. So to me, you can't be nobody's going 0-18, right? So you can't be worse than 0-17. I don't think the Patriots are going 0-17. I don't think the Panthers are going 0-17. So I have the Giants as the worst team.
I think the Patriots win. I think your Patriots. I know I may have, when we did our schedules, I said 3 wins, but after thinking about it now, man, like they have 0 offensive weapons. Their offensive line is trash. They have Jacoby Brissett, which we all know he's not like great quarterback. And then Drake May, who we haven't really seen what he can do. I think they should just throw him in there, let him learn what he can do, what he can't do. It's not going to make the team worse.
No, and first of all, I don't think they have 0 offensive weapons because I think Ramondre Stevenson's one of the top 10 running backs in the NFL.
Okay, they do have a good running back, but besides that, nothing really else.
No, and they're really hurting, and I don't think they should put Drake May in right away. I think Bazooka Joe should go in right away, and he should be the starter for week 1. And then they'll win 12 games. They'll go 12-5 with Bazooka Joe.
But they drafted him 3rd overall. They have all this invested in him. So, it's like I was saying on our last show, like, let him be like Josh Allen's first rookie year. Let him go out there. Josh Allen didn't have a good line, didn't have a lot of weapons, and he ran a bunch. And he won some games. He struggled, but I think they should do that with Drake May.
They could, and by all means, Drake May is a much, much better quarterback this year than Josh Allen was year 1 of his rookie year. Josh Allen came into the league. He was completing 55% of his passes in college against college players. And then they put him in the NFL. I think he completed 52.9 or something like that his rookie year. Huge accuracy issues. But that's one of the things that we talk about is that if you want to be great, you have to be a game manager. You have to know when to check down, throw that screen pass. Don't try to sling it 60 yards every time. And so Allen's figured that out. I think May kind of understands that already. He doesn't have Allen's arm. It's not even close. Joe Milton does. But we'll see how it goes. I think it's going to end up being Brissett initially, and then we'll see how many games it goes before they go to May and, eventually Milton.
Well, they've already came out and said they're starting Brissett week 1. So,
yeah.
But I think we will see him at some point because we know, like I told you before, we know what Brissett can do.
Now, I did want to bring this one up here. You also had the question, who's going to have a better season, Gardner Minshew or Sam Darnold? Now, to me, this was a complete no-brainer in Gardner Minshew because obviously he's been a successful starter in the past. He doesn't have the greatest win-loss record because of that year in Jacksonville. But this is a guy who had 203 yards a game, 59 touchdowns to 24 interceptions, almost a 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. Completes 63% of his passes. Darnold, 59.7, 183 yards a game, and 63 touchdowns to 56 interceptions. I mean, why would history change at all?
And see, I'm not gonna go by history because I feel like people change, Wayne. You're not always gonna be the person you were in the past. And I feel like in sports, you see change a lot. Like Steph Curry, nobody really knew him in his first couple of years. It took him a second to really establish himself. I feel like football, to a certain degree, is like that also. In my opinion, I think Darnold is going to have a better season. He's got way more weapons. And I think he's got, like I've told you before, he's got an offensive coach who's going to put him in the right situations. Minshew is playing for Antonio Pierce, defensive head coach. Who's his offensive coordinator? I don't even know because it's the fucking Raiders. But I think a lot of the reason Minshew had success last year is because of Shane Steichen. I think Shane Steichen is a very good offensive mind. I think him being in that system, Minshew excelled. And I think also Hurts not being with Steichen anymore, how did he struggle? And I think you're going to see that this year with Minshew being with a coordinator that's not as good, and he's going to struggle. So I'm going Darnold.
Well, as far as weapons, I think that the Raiders' weapons are equal to the Vikings' weapons. I think that you look at Jefferson versus Adams, that's a pretty good wash right there. Addison versus Myers, to me, that's pretty comparable. You look at the tight ends, Hawkinson. I know Brock Bowers is a rookie, but they're saying like he's unbelievable. Like he's like Gronk, he's just unbelievable. And they also have Michael Mayer. So they got Mayer and they've got Bowers, the two tight ends with the two receivers. He's going to have people to throw to. Running backs, you got Aaron Jones in Minnesota, but he's also 39 or 43, something like that. And then you got Zamir White in Las Vegas, and then backing him up is the former Vikings running back Madison. So to me, the weapons are comparable. I think obviously you have to go by history here. You can't just say like Darnold's never been good, but I think he will be now with no proof. I'm saying this guy Minshew has proven he's good. It's going to continue. An object in motion will stay.
He's only proven he was good in 1 year in Indy. Like he wasn't that great in Jacksonville. That's why he got tossed around. That's why he got sent to Philly, and then all of a sudden Indianapolis, and now the Raiders. So I'm not going to say that he's a better quarterback either than Darnold.
You have to remember in Jacksonville, you may not remember, you're kind of a young guy, but in Jacksonville, this guy,
get the fuck out of here.
He threw for 300 yards a game, like 5 or 6, 7 times when he was in Jacksonville. Like people say, well, that's because they were losing by so much and the defense was in prevent, and so that's why he was completing all these passes. But he put up really good numbers in Jacksonville. He did okay in Indianapolis. Darnold's never even been okay. He's never had an okay season, and now we're saying he's going to be good.
I think him going to San Francisco last year was like a rehab. And I'm not going to say that he's going to be completely different, but I think he's changed. And I think learning under Shanahan for a whole year is going to help. And I just got more confidence in an offensive coach than I do Antonio Pierce.
Well, I will say that Darnold has one thing going for him. At 59.7%, he's already better than John Elway. So, any thoughts on that before we close up shop here? Yeah, no words for a 57% completion percentage. It's just I don't know. I'm glad it wasn't my quarterback. My guy, he won 6 Super Bowls. Didn't have a ton of weapons. Reminds me a lot of guys like Lamar Jackson and Brock Purdy. So that is my thoughts on the NFL. We are the NFL experts. I do appreciate everybody tuning in and going through the show with us. Obviously, we didn't get the full hour, but you got some backup stuff from last week or a couple days ago. Follow us on social media at NFL Experts Pod. Email us nflexpertspod@gmail.com. And with that, any parting thoughts, Mark?
Party on, Wayne.
Party on, Mark.